On a cold American night in the mid-1970s, a quiet fear spread across cities and college campuses. Women disappeared without a sound. Police had no clues, and the only thing witnesses could agree on was a strange each missing woman was last seen speaking to a polite, good-looking man who introduced himself with a warm smile. And a simple name, Ted. No one could imagine that behind that charming face lived a man whose mind was darker than the night he hunted it. This is the story of a killer who didn't look like a monster, a criminal who blended into society so perfectly that even the police refused to believe he could be guilty. This is the story of how a single man fooled friends, lovers, teachers, judges, and even the American justice system, all while leaving behind a trail of victims across multiple states before the world knew the word serial killer. America already had Ted Bundy. Bundy's life did not begin with the chaos he later created. Born into confusion, surrounded by family secrets, and raised under a false identity, Ted learned early how to act, how to lie, and how to wear masks that fooled everyone around him. As he grew, so did his ability to manipulate and attract people. He became the friendly student, admired by teachers, the supportive boyfriend trusted by his partner, and the promising young man believed to have a bright future. No one realized that behind this well-controlled exterior, a storm was building, one that would soon explode into a series of brutal crimes committed with such confidence and calculation that the country had never seen anything like it before. As we dive into this story, you will see how a boy with a broken identity evolved into one of the most dangerous men in American history. You will see how he used charm as a weapon, intelligence as a shield, and confidence as a trap. You will witness how he fooled the entire justice system, not once, but twice escaping custody, like a character from a movie, only to return to the one thing he knew best: killing without remorse. This video will take you from Ted Bundy's childhood to his double life as a student and predator from the first disappearance, to the massive manhunt that tried to stop him from his shocking escapes, to the trial that became America's first televised courtroom spectacle, and finally to his chilling confessions before he faced the electric chair. This isn't just the story of a serial killer. It has a deep look into how someone so normal on the outside can be so terrifying on the inside. A lesson that danger doesn't always arrive with a scary face. Sometimes it smiles, introduces itself politely, and asks for help loading a boat, carrying books, or opening a car door. Sometimes evil looks exactly like the person you'd never suspect. And perhaps that is why the story of Ted Bundy continues to haunt the world even decades after his death. The story of Ted Bundy does not begin with violence. It begins with silence, and uncomfortable, suffocating kind of silence that shaped a boy long before he ever became a killer. Born in Burlington, Vermont, in 1946, Theodore Robert Cowell entered a world already wrapped in secrets. His mother, Eleanor Louise Cowell, was unmarried and terrified of the shame that society would place on a single mother in the 1940s. So the family made a decision that would alter the boy's identity forever. They introduced Louise not as Ted's mother, but as his sister. And the elderly couple raising him, Ted, believed they were his parents. This lie, though intended to protect, created a fracture deep inside Bundy, one he would carry like a growing shadow. As a child, Ted was quiet, observant, and unusually sensitive to embarrassment. Family members later recalled moments where Ted seemed disconnected, as if he were watching his own life from a distance. There were whispers that he struggled socially, that something about him felt off. Yet, no one could place it. He collected images of violent accidents from magazines, studied them longer than a child should. He isolated himself, preferring long walks alone. The signs were subtle, but they were there, small cracks in a boy who was learning to hide every emotion he felt. When Ted finally discovered the truth about his family, when he learned that his sister was actually his mother, something in him hardened. This revelation struck during his teenage years, the period when identity forms and emotions shift. For most, such news would bring confusion, sadness, maybe anger. For Ted, it brought detachment. A wall went up inside him. He began to wear a mask, smiling outwardly while hiding his resentment and loneliness inside. He became a performer, a boy who knew how to act normal, even when he didn't feel it. In high school, Bundy appeared like an average student, but underneath the surface, he struggled socially and emotionally. He admired people who had what he didn't: confidence, stability, belonging. He studied them, copied them, practiced becoming the version of himself that he believed others wanted to see. This habit, this skill of becoming someone else, would later become one of his deadliest tools. Ted learned to blend in so perfectly that no one ever suspected what lived behind the performance. As he entered college, Bundy developed an obsession with understanding people not emotionally, but strategically. He paid attention to how charm worked, how confidence opened doors, how appearance shaped trust. It was as if he were collecting tools, sharpening them for the future. The boy who once struggled to find his place in the world slowly transformed into a young man who could slip into any environment unnoticed. A man who could smile, shake your hand, and make you feel safe, while something darker watched silently behind his eyes. The seeds of the monster had been planted, watered by lies, nourished by insecurity, and hidden behind a mask he would never take off. Ted Bundy's early adulthood was a masterpiece of deception to the world. He appeared ambitious, well-mannered, and remarkably intelligent. He studied psychology at the University of Washington, eager to understand how people thought, how they reacted, how they trusted. His professors admired him. His peers liked him. No one saw the cracks. Yet behind the polite smiles and thoughtful conversations, Ted was beginning to split into two people. In public, he was the charming young man with a neatly combed hairstyle and a polite tone. But privately, he was restless, drifting through life without purpose, haunted by rejection, and driven by impulses he didn't understand or didn't want to admit. The turning point came when he fell deeply in love with a woman from a wealthy, sophisticated background. She represented everything Ted thought he deserved: class, security, acceptance. But when she eventually broke off the relationship, believing Ted lacked direction and ambition, something inside him broke. The rejection didn't just hurt him, it reshaped him. Later, Bundy would admit that many of his future victims resembled her. Long dark hair, parted in the middle. It was as if he were chasing a shadow of the woman who walked away. After the breakup, Ted reinvented himself. He became involved in politics, volunteered at crisis hotlines, and worked on community campaigns. People found him warm, empathetic, trustworthy. Ironically, he comforted victims of abuse and trauma, sometimes hours after committing violent acts himself. The duality was shocking. He was the killer and the counselor, the predator and the protector. And he hid it so well. His girlfriend at the time, Elizabeth Kendall, believed she had found a caring partner. Ted cooked for her daughter, helped her on the house, whispered promises of a future together. But Elizabeth also saw glimpses of darkness, mood swings, sudden disappearances, unusual anger. She brushed it aside, thinking everyone had flaws. She had no idea she was living with a man who was slowly slipping into the shadows. As the years passed, Ted Bundy's night self, the one full of anger and hunger, grew stronger. He began wandering late at night, driving aimlessly, watching women from a distance. He studied their movements, learned their habits, memorized their routines. He became addicted to the feeling of control, the sense of power in being unseen. During the day, he shook hands with politicians. At night, he stalked strangers. During the day, he helped people in crisis. At night, he created crises others could never recover from. The split became so complete that even Ted seemed confused at times about who he really was. His double life wasn't accidental, it was intentional. The mask wasn't slipping, it was solidifying. Ted Bundy wasn't hiding the monster, he was becoming it.